we realized this is producing. We like this.
True.
We like being there from the very beginning to the very end. We like seeing it reach the audience. We like that part of the process. And we felt like, or I felt like that was a calling to produce. And after that point, it never had to be me in the director's chair.
Welcome to the Red, Green, Blue Podcast.
Okay, well, here we are with Jason Fowler on the RGB Podcast. Remember to like and subscribe. I've never said that before, but I'm going to say it. I know it's annoying, but I think you need to say it because we're having tons of viewers and we're not getting as many subscribers as I'd like. We're getting like 30,000 viewers in the past 3 weeks, and we want more subscribers. So to watch more of this, subscribe. But anyway, I'm here with Jason Fowler who wrote and produced many great fantasy movies and TV series. Outpost, which was on the CW for 4 seasons. Mythica, which was a reoccurring film. There's 5 Mythicas?
There's 6.
6 Mythicas. And he's starting a new series filming in Ireland soon called The Wayfinders, which is really exciting. And again, I don't know if you're new to film, this doesn't happen. This is like really rare. Like of people, if you're like even in a pretty good film school, let's say like you're at the University of Virginia Film School, maybe once every 5 years you'll get, maybe once every 10 years you'll get somebody like Jason. Like this is really, really rare. I mean, honestly, even a big pro like NYU or USC, it's a lot more rare than you think. They'll have like somebody who's actually working in the industry making TV series once every 3 or 4 years. So this is really what Jason has done is incredible. And one thing I think that's overlooked about Jason is that what a good writer he is. And like he has written a lot of these. I mean, I think it's easy to focus on the producing element in film, but he has actually written the scripts of many of these things he's produced. So it's kind of an interesting thing to me is that you're a really strong producer, you're a really strong writer, but why don't you direct? Like you could have the trifecta.
I have directed.
You have directed?
And in film school, you do, like everyone else, I was going to be a director. So
yeah.
How close do you want me?
Oh, wait, here, we can move it.
Okay.
A little closer. There we go. Like 3 inches or so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How's that?
That's good. That's
Sorry.
good.
So, like everyone else in film school, we were all directors,
Everyone's a director.
The terrible thing of film school.
And then there's a cage fight at film school and one person emerges.
Kind of like.
Yeah.
And so I directed quite a few things. I directed I shot on 35 millimeter film. I was very ambitious as a director and I to direct all these things. And I loved writing those things as well. But I did okay directing, but I looked at it and sometimes I'd write something and I'd think, am I really the best person to bring this to life? This requires a certain kind of visuals. And I'd think about another director and my now business partner who we've been working forever together. We were offered a short film to produce with a budget, and that was like a job and make a little bit of money.
Oh my gosh, you're making money! Wow,
yeah, like,
that's amazing.
We can pay ourselves a little bit out of this budget, and we're going to make this short film for a good cause. And we found out that was producing.
Yeah. And
we'd never thought about business, never taken a business class, never thought about producing. The people who took the producing classes, those are those clean cut kids, and they, we're like we're not like that. But produced and gathered the right group of people together and found the best director. We wrote it because we were writers. Yes. And we still love the writing part. But everybody else came together and made a great film. And that experience, we realized this is producing.
Yeah.
And kind of fell sideways into that and said, we like this. We like being there from the very beginning to the very end. We like seeing it reach the audience. We like that part of the process. And we felt like, or I felt like that was a calling to produce. And after that point, it never had to be me in the director's chair. And it more was about having a concept, working with how can we make this concept the best it can be, and learning all about producing. So that was it. And I haven't looked back much, and I have directed a couple of episodes of television, and I've been a little bit part of the directing process, and we get to do prep with the directors. But I'm a writer and a producer now.
No, in a way, producer, like that, in a way, like directing is something that just like destroys your entire life. Because when you really have to if you're doing purely directing. Same thing with being a DP, because you always have to be like there on set.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of work. Whereas producing, you can have like, you can jump in, you can jump out, you can kind of keep the machine going, and so you can have it's more work-life balance.
And I almost feel like producing is a better extension of writing than the directing is. The directing adds a whole new layer and a new perspective that I love that comes on top of the writing, whereas the producing is sort of overseeing every aspect of bringing that script to life from every single stage of the thing and seeing that it gets the right team. And so producing, I feel like, is actually a really natural extension of writing. And in television, that's literally true, is the producers, executive producers, showrunners is all extensions of writing. And the directors, they pop in and out. Yeah. They'll pop in and direct an episode. Even the actors sort of understand this world and the characters and that sort of thing much, much better than the directors do. And actors, for that reason, in television are given a lot of that respect because they've been there for it all and they know a lot about it. And so, but in television, it's the producers who are really driving the creative vision.
Showrunner. Showrunner. Is that a title you take upon yourself?
Showrunner is a writer producer, and it is. I'm a co-showrunner right now with Kynan and Justin and others on the Wayfinders. So
in fact, I heard like Leonard Nimoy with his iconic Spock character of Star Trek, like he would have directors come in that would sometimes violate what he thought and the character should do. And a director in the script, he was supposed to punch somebody. And he's like, I don't think Spock would punch somebody. And so he came up with the Vulcan neck pinch because he thought that would be a Vulcan way of taking somebody out.
Yeah, that's TV.
That's TV. But he was surprised like how he felt it was his job to protect the Spock character because he was the only consistent one there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So no, that's really exciting. Honestly, I feel, especially since TV, a lot of the action is in TV nowadays, that showrunners are kind of becoming the celebrities of the film industry.
Yeah, when we made the Mythica films, we got a little bit of this is starting in 2013, and we were conceiving that in 2012, 2013, and this long form of storytelling, which was we're going to make 3 Mythica movies, and actually 5 were planned out right from the beginning. And from a writing perspective, that longevity, that character development, that ability to tell a story over a longer period was energizing from a writing perspective. You didn't have to, the movie arc. Here we've got to set up the characters. We got to, there's a very strict format for, especially we were making sort of like TV level films, so made for TV almost. And there was a format there. And with Mythica, we didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
We had an ongoing story with ongoing cast and characters. So we were really making television there. We made 5 movies over a period of just, a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah. If it was done more like not in the DVD era, it would have been probably considered a series.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so we felt like we were making kind of television. And then this whole shift to television came around that
and the
time.
death of the DVD.
And the death of DVD. Which was most of the money in the industry, to be honest.
No, it was.
People don't talk about that, but even for the big movies, more than half of the money came from DVD, not from theatrical, not from So as that disappeared and TV came to life, we felt like we were positioned, and we'd practiced on Mythica, this longer format storytelling, and sort of really wanted to get into television at that time. So,
do you think you could re-edit Mythica and release it as a series?
Yeah, we've talked about it.
Just put in some fade in, fade outs, and some dramatic music at the end of the episode.
It's more from a distribution level. Yeah. The distributors are like, it's easier to sell as movies still in the independent market.
Okay,
sort of like independently selling TV is harder
because they have to commit to like 5 like big block of stuff.
Well, we already have the episodes, so we could recut it and just syndicate it or something in the streaming world. But they said it's actually still easier to sell as movies. But yeah, we think about that. We say, oh, we could make a 12 episode.
Yeah. Or even
season.
Just call them 2-hour episodes.
But one season of TV is actually also really hard to sell unless you say limited series and it makes sense as a limited series. People aren't into one season of TV. They love to hear that there's 3 or something, right? Like that's the better market.
I don't know if maybe what was it? Galaxy, not Battlestar Galactica. Battlestar Galactica, they did a little mini series first, and then they got the series.
Yeah,
because
and I think also the UK markets, they're very used to a 6-part series being released that way. They've done it for decades, so it's an old format for them. And so I think limited series do better there, but in the US audiences. Some of them also they live in fear that it's going to get canceled and not wrap up properly, and nobody wants to see half of a movie. In that sense, nobody wants to see half of a story. So they've been beaten down by shows that have canceled that they loved, and so some of them even just say, "I'll just wait until I know there's enough that I can." Like
The First Office, and many other shows that were canceled that ended up being amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's actually something I was going to ask you about. And this is a larger distribution thing. And we talked to somebody else, but especially in a genre like fantasy, where you've got a very strong, dedicated core group. And so fantasy authors, they may not sell many books, but they sell 20 books to the same person. And the DVD market, it seemed that really worked with that, because you could, get $16 from one viewer. But with streaming, and I feel there's parallels between the film and the music industry. So I feel back in the 90s during the CD era, we had all these subgenres and genres because we could get so much money from one person with a CD sell. But now with streaming music, it's all general audience. And so do you feel pressures like that being in a genre like fantasy, that you can't get as much money from your loyal group, or have you found other ways beyond streaming, like t-shirt sales, or I don't know?
Well, I mean, fantasy is a special scenario that is fan driven, and finding a group of those fans, and there's different fantasy audiences as well within fantasy. It's not all one thing.
Different camps.
Sword and sorcery fantasy, urban fantasy. There's very different camps, like you say.
Magical realism. Yeah.
And so, I don't want one brush that fits it all, paints it all, but fantasy in general, what's wonderful about it is if you don't offend that audience, they are very supportive, very engaged.
And evangelical, they'll sell it. They'll sell it to their older friends.
They will. And they're also very forgiving, as long as the earnestness is there about trying to tell that story well and right, and put your heart and work into it. If it has the love in it, then they will respond. And they'll forgive that you have a low budget, and they'll forgive that you can't do everything you wished you could.
Yeah.
And that's great. And it can have a life that way. But something that's generally true of independent creation and for fantasy, and this goes for everything else as well, is that things have changed. And you mentioned, harder some ways to make money. And I believe it's very mathematical, and it's something I don't want to share to discourage people, but there is a truth that there is a ton of content, and there is so much content, and all of that content is alive and well and having engagement on so many platforms.
Yeah.
And what it used to be is you made a movie, and that was a big deal, right?
Having a movie in a can. You made
a movie in the can. It's in the can. You got it, and you shot it on film. That's how it used to be.
Hence the in the can expression.
Yeah, you shot it on film. That's a big deal, and there is a place, and people are going to be excited, and you can make waves and sales and get viewers and sell DVDs and all the rest, right?
Yeah.
The amount of content at your fingertips now is hundreds of times, and every single year we add to that. And you mentioned the music industry. When you come out with a song or an album right now, you're fighting what? Everything that's ever come before.
Everything.
Right? Like look on the most listened to tracks of the year on Spotify or something like that, and sometimes you go, oh, look, there's AC/DC in the running. There's like, and you realize that there's hundreds of millions of listens are going to things that, and what it used to be is things that came out had a little life.
Because they were on the shelf.
A burst of popularity. Yeah. They're on the shelf. You can get them right now. They're on a channel.
A little marketing.
They're in the theater. Yeah. They're on the shelf in terms of a DVD or a song or whatever. Yeah. And it had its moment, and then its moment was over. And that's gone. It's all there, and it's all there right now. Everything, everywhere, all at once. And because of that, when you put something out into the market, very hard to get attention, because every new 15-year-old fantasy lover now has 100 dragon movies at their fingertips. And let me tell you, when we made our first dragon movies, there were three. Yeah. And you could go to Blockbuster and you could see them there. There they are.
There's one dragon, two movies.
Yeah, there's just a handful. And Lord of the Rings, of course, came out and gave fantasy fans more. And then since then, though, hundreds and hundreds and big TV shows with many seasons, and there's a lot more content, and it used to be very easy to anyway. And I think that's true in all the genres. It's just true. Like, you make a horror movie right now, well, you're still competing with every horror movie that ever came out, where it used to be a new horror movie was, one of a few, and everybody wanted to see it. And
also it seems like people are more okay. I remember like when I was in high school, somebody going like, Mark, have you seen Xanadu? I'm like, no. She's like, you should. It's hilarious. Mm-hmm. And I watched Xanadu recently, and it's like 80s. And I think we're just more tolerant to like different older fashions. I really liked Xanadu. I thought it was fine. Olivia Newton-John, great. But like in the 90s, like all of that would just be like, oh, can't watch this. We'd laugh at that because it was so out of fashion. But there's no longer like a fashion, it seems.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
I think that's true. Everything is in style. And that's my comment about AC/DC is that my kids can love AC/DC, and there's nothing like, oh, that's dad music.
Yeah.
Or something like.
No, that would definitely happen.
When we were 15, right?
Yeah.
Like there was no way. Like.
No. In fact, I remember once I discovered my dad's collection of records. And again, this is a physical media thing. Like, they were in the back, and he like listened to them in college, and it was like Styx and Yes and Cream and stuff, and which is really amazing stuff, by the way, like amazing rock music. And I played it for my friends, like, listen to this, and they like made fun of me for a week.
Yeah,
because it wasn't like
you get
Nirvana.
You get a wedgie for that.
Yeah, like, you listen to your dad's music, that's so dumb. I'm like, but like now I'm very proud of my 16-year-old self for having good taste.
Yeah.
There you have it. And also another thing I think about is that like bands today, to use the music parallel, you have to compete with Led Zeppelin. Are you better than Led Zeppelin? Like, that is legitimately a question. And like very few bands in history can say they're better than Led Zeppelin.
That's it. And I, I'd say the same thing in film now, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, well, somebody could watch Back to the Future, or they could watch my little movie that I just came up with and put out. And I couldn't tell them what I've done is
better than Back to the Future.
And they haven't seen those hundreds of great things that are sitting right there ready to be consumed. So it is hard for a filmmaker, an indie filmmaker right now, to come out and try to make a splash. And that's the challenge. That's the challenge of being a filmmaker, is finding a way to say, what can be new? What is unique? How can I impact this market that is so saturated with so many millions of hours of really fantastic content? There's tons of garbage too, but there's also so much good content, and you only have so many thousand hours to watch movies and TV in your life. How are you going to spend those thousands of hours when there's those hundreds of thousands of good content hours? So it's a hard time.
It's a hard time. So, but do you feel like your movies now have to have like a more of a mass appeal? I mean, like, wait, a lot of this, being a fantasy fan pre-Lord of the Rings, I think was like problematic, but now it's like more mainstream. That's probably made your life easier. Do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
In some ways, the opposite.
Oh, really?
In some ways, right now, in independent, okay,
yeah,
independently,
yeah.
Not saying I have a $300 million studio budget to make. Maybe then the mass audience thing is crucial, and 4 quadrants and all that. But maybe I'm going to make a mountain biking focused movie, because that's, and there's not a lot of mountain biking focused movies.
Yeah.
I think you're in a better spot to focus and say, who is this audience? Who, as an independent,
because then at least somebody likes it,
as an independent,
right?
you got a group of people talking about a mountain biking movie.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a place for narrowing your focus, because there's lots of ways to reach an audience now. That's what's great.
Yeah.
You can get on platforms.
And you can be on multiple platforms.
Get on Amazon and have, get on all the platform, Tubi, and the ones that are easy to get on every single one of them and reach an audience. That didn't used to be true. It used to be really distribution. I mean, all the people still say, well, distribution is, and it's like, that's an old idea. Distribution is a lot more open than it used to be. You can get in places, and the question just is, does anyone care? Does anyone want to watch it? That's
the gate, whereas it used to be distribution was the gate.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, so you can get somewhere. The question is, does anybody care, and are they going to come to your thing? And in some ways, maybe narrowing your focus is a way to do that. On the other hand, we're doing the Wayfinders right now, and we want it. It's fantasy, but we're like, it's also, and this is, you know, the thing that, you know, it's also for everyone. It's got this.
Oh, really? It is.
Yeah, it has an earth side.
Does have a dog in it. Everyone loves dogs.
It does have a dog right now in the script. It has a dog, maybe just to make this character more likable. We're very, you know, functional with our dog placement, because that takes time on set. Dogs.
Oh, I bet. You know? Yeah. Do you have to dog doubles? Stunt dogs, like 5 different lassies.
Don't say that.
No, you're not just
sweat dog doubles. Oh no!
It's like the dog just pooped off our only costume of our lead. What are we gonna do now? Shoot. Yeah. Coincidentally, that's something. Just as far as like pre-production on producing, Ron Howard, I heard once said that the thing about producing is you end up chasing a lot of dead ends, no matter what, like casting and, you know, a lot of dead ends. Do you find that, or has it been pretty smooth sailing for you? I mean, you have more control in a way, because you're not dealing with like massive stars and stuff like that.
I think one of there's a handful of scripts that I've written that remain to be produced, but
really?
A surprising percent of things I've spent time writing have been produced.
Yeah.
So kind of maybe less dead ends, because I'm a writer producer combination. But there's there are projects that I've been pitching for years now. You know? And there are projects that I've put a lot into, and for a while we had an agent, being kind of, or a manager and an agent, and they would bring us important things and say, hey, look, here's a big novel. We want you to pitch this and develop this, you know, for studio production or something.
Yeah.
We'd dive in and we'd work our guts out and say, look at this amazing thing we can make out of this. And we'd come up with really amazing things and think, now it's super brilliant. And this is like the best possible thing this could be. Audiences are going to go crazy for this. And our agent would give that to the studio, and they're like, okay, we don't know. We might hear back. Like, we spent like weeks, and we perfected that, and we wrote on it and crafted this thing. And we quickly learned that they give this to like 100 writers.
Because it doesn't cost them anything.
And these writers do all that work and that pitching for free. And I don't know what Ron Howard's world is like.
Ron Howard's in a different world than all of us.
But my belief is that they are doing the same thing. They have amazing pitches, things that are brilliant, and it's like they still get turned down. We all still, you put a lot into something, and you write scripts, and you buy options and rights to things. And we've done that. We've bought multiple options to books and things like that, and developed those, and struggled to find a way to get it made. So those are those
dead ends.
Those are the dead ends.
Well,
and they're hard. Yeah. And they're hard, and we avoid them as much as we can, because this is a lot of work.
Well, especially when it's, you're a small production company, and it's like, well, shoot, that's 3 months down the tubes. But I think it's just part of it. But even, what was it, James Cameron, after he did Titanic, I find this amazing. It took him 10 years to make his next movie. I mean, he had one of the biggest hits of all time, and then 10 years to do his next movie.
Is it really?
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, it's I think it's like seeing where your movie operates. Because I do see people with scripts who are going around and they're getting turned down a lot. I'm like, you do realize like that's a $200 million movie. And there are people like James Cameron. Like there's like 30 James Camerons. They're being turned down too. So how like really think of a script that's more your speed that you're going to actually be able to make.
I think that's one of the hardest things in the industry right now. We know we had this explosion of filmmakers and TV and people in the industry and brilliant minds, and they're making tons of stuff, thousands of episodes of TV every year, and then there's a contraction a little bit.
Or a lot of it,
right?
Yeah.
Or a pretty.
I just got back from NAB. NAB was about maybe half the attendance usually is.
Sure, yeah.
Anyway.
So there's this contraction, and there's still all those people with big credits, worked on amazing things, dove into the industry, have worked on top line TV shows for the biggest networks and the biggest platforms and streamers, and they've got a pitch. And they say, well, look, I was a showrunner on this hit show. And it's like, I honestly think the money holders, the networks and the studios are like, yeah, I got to decide which of you.
Which of you guys is going to last.
Which of you I can give something to. And now let's say you're a new entrant, or even like me, an independent entrant who sort of had a thing on the CW and NBCU and, have a little relationship there. And they're like, sorry, I'm turning down Ron Howard today.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't even really consider you right now. I have to keep my best stable of
my core guys working.
Yeah. I have to keep my core people. And that's a really, really hard thing right now for independents too, is to not understand sort of the world that you're entering when you get in that room and you make a pitch. Even if they love the pitch, they're like, how can I need to keep this other genius working. Yeah. And I only have like a couple of budgets to give out right now.
Yeah. And also as a producer, I think a big thing, and this is that you're trying to avoid getting fired, and no one ever got fired for hiring Ron Howard. Yeah. Like if Ron Howard has a flop, it's like, well, it was Ron Howard. No one's going to be like, how dare you hire Ron Howard? That was like the dumbest thing you've ever done. You're fired.
I like that. He's IBM.
He's the IBM. Well, and and we all know their names. I mean, you poke around, you see them, and it's like you're not going to get in trouble if you work with them.
Held on to Ron for another something.
Yeah. But there was a problem, I think that is in Hollywood, is that like all these guys, these standbys that really came to, power in the 70s and the 80s, like they're getting pretty old now. And it's like, to me, it's interesting about the film industry that like Christopher Nolan is like a young buck, but he's like kind of old.
It's been a while.
And same thing with Quentin Tarantino. Like these are like the two young bucks, and they're pushing 60.
Yeah. They're definitely a middle generation now.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, that boomer, I just think a lot of talent went into the industry in the 70s. And I mean, these are all people I love and admire and just so much. But again, like Robert Redford's 88 years old. Like I just looked that up recently. I mean, forever in my head, he's like the Sundance Kid in his early 30s, 33 years old. But no, he's 88. Like that's, bless him for all the work he's done. Yep. But we need a new Robert Redford.
Yep.
Come on. Where is he? Where is he? So what do you feel like? We talked about this previously a little bit off camera, but like, what is it like filming in Ireland? You're telling me like their film incentive structure a little different than others, because Ireland does seem to be the place to film, and that's where you're filming Wayfinders. Yeah,
Ireland's wonderful now. I mean, we're in Ireland. There's castles. There's so many castles. My wife came out and we toured around a little bit, and there was a point where we said, okay, no more castles. We've seen a lot of castles. So as making a medieval fantasy show where 3/4 of the show takes place in this fantasy world, Ireland's wonderful, and it's very classic medieval landscapes too, and a classic look that everybody sort of harkens back to other fantasy things they've seen, and kind of feel that legacy of a place like Ireland, that Celtic and the influences, and Irish, just old Irish.
It's like Ireland is a fantasy world. Mm-hmm. Like you don't need to do much set dressing. It just kind of looks fantasy-ish.
You get a lot. And to be honest, the crews there understand that rich heritage so well. They know the history. They've seen 1,000 amazing medieval things.
Yeah, because it's their history. Yeah,
it is, and so they have that, and they understand wardrobe from that era, and they understand. So it's
it makes it easy.
It does. So Ireland's an amazing place to shoot, and we're very happy to be shooting there. Put on my producer hat and say, the incentives in Ireland, they give them up front.
Yeah,
90% of their film incentive comes up front. That's a big piece that you don't have to figure out financing for, and you can actually put it right straight into the budget. You just say, what's our budget? Okay, now add the Ireland incentive, and we're there. So we only have to get 2/3 of the investment. We only have to get, 2/3 of the financing figured out, and the rest is right there. So I think that's another reason a lot of people are going to Ireland. Shows that have nothing to do with Ireland and just shooting on stages there might want to be in Ireland for that reason, because it's just frankly a big advantage from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, the Irish, they're very proud. When I was in graduate school, I had an Irish compadre, co-classmate, and I don't know if this is still true, but he told me that artists in Ireland don't pay income tax, which means U2 doesn't pay income tax. Like, he was like, and that's amazing support for the arts. And so in him, he was just like a low-level visual artist, but it was nice for them. But they have a very strong artistic tradition, and they're big fans.
They do, for the right roles in film. There's a lot of support there.
Well, a lot of great Irish actors come out of there as a system. Yeah. Oppenheimer, for example. What's his name? I don't know. The guy who played Oppenheimer. He's Irish. And he's in Batman. He's Scarecrow in Batman. Anyway, we're freezing on name, but he's a really good actor.
Yeah.
And also, I think, like, as far as like actors coming, we see a lot of serious actors because their system is more academic. I don't know, because they come up through the stage, because they really subsidize stage plays in the United Kingdom and in Ireland. Big distinction. Nobody get offended over that. But they have this great literary tradition where a lot of our stars kind of come up through the Disney Channel track or something, so they can they stay in longer, so they can get older, mature. Hence Sir Patrick Stewart and so on. So they can add a gravitas to American movies. I have
to say, casting in the UK is
what was it like?
It's wonderful. They are very capable, very strong actors, come from a very strong acting tradition, and they've worked very hard. I don't want to disparage.
Stage is a lot of work.
Yeah, I don't want to disparage the American acting culture.
Yeah,
from the standpoint of a lot of them work very hard, but they don't have, I don't think, the system. I mean, I'm sure they do in certain schools and in certain
areas,
but the system from the very beginning to all the way ground up, from a very very strong tradition of training the actors well. And you see it, like you see it in auditions, you see it on set. They have skills. They have a bag of skills that a lot of American actors who got into acting because they were told they were so awesome, maybe, or because, and I feel like in the UK, you pay your dues and you work. And if you don't do that, you're not an actor.
Yeah.
There's just no, whereas in the US, I mean, if you look great and you auditioned well, you can sort of stumble a little bit into acting in the US a whole lot better, I think, than you can in the UK.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's because of the government funding, and they have developed an ecosystem, and it's competitive. And whereas in America, I mean, if you're doing community theater, I mean, whatever it is, it's just hard to stay in the system.
Yeah.
So either you were in it as a kid and you kind of grew up and kept hitting. And it's funny because you see a lot of the lead actors in our system are like things that worked for them when they were younger. Now that they're older, they're still a known quantity, but now they're just really short and kid looking, So, but we still try to cast them in kind of like the Indiana Jones role. Whereas like back in the 70s, like Robert Redford, Harrison Ford, they didn't get hit big until their early 30s,
That's true.
But yeah, well, that's really interesting. So what do you feel like, what do you see as your future? Do you want to do more fantasy films, or do you have any projects you're working on?
That's interesting. I love fantasy.
I mean, it's a good genre to be in. I'm not saying that you should leave it.
I got into it because we loved it, and I've loved it from very young. I'm not as big a consumer of fantasy as I was young, and I think a lot of what I do is still tapping into my teenage years and being a huge fantasy fan and reading a lot of books and caring a lot about that. I love science fiction, and I have science fiction stories that I'd love to tell, and that's a close cousin in a way to fantasy.
It is.
But in another way, I consider it quite different, and would love to do some science fiction. So I think the truth about fantasy is it's something that comes very easy to us, and it's very easy to get pigeonholed. It's something that everybody expects from us. So when we go for funding, or when we go, this is something these guys totally get and obviously love, and there's no need to prove my my dedication to being serious about this. Whereas like if I wanted to make like a comedy, I'd probably have to work pretty hard to convince somebody that I'm right for that, and then I'm ready for that. And
Well, and also, I mean, there's a skill set with fantasy you may even take for granted at this stage, but you know how to get 100 knights in armor. And that's a hard thing to do that not a lot of people can do.
No, there's some of the other producers on the team, they know how to run that, and they know what it means. And the people that we're hiring don't really necessarily, right? The producers we're hiring, or and the producers we're working with right now in Ireland, they kind of do. They've done some of that, but it's so true. It's such a big difference what that's going to take, and how much time you need to put to that, or how much money goes in this department.
Yeah,
those are things that our team has done a lot of times over. So they're really good at that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, anyway, we got to get them out of here, but it's really good talking to you. Again, like and subscribe for more great interviews. Thanks for coming, Jason.
Thank you so much. That was great.
Good talking to you.
All
See
right,
ya.
Take care.